All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live. Where in the world is Greg Hudson? We'll find out right now. Coach Hud, what's up?
How you doing? I'm
I'm
in the
good, man.
Midwest.
Where you at?
I'm in the Midwest. I drove back to Indiana. I had a schedule change and ended up going to the National Strength Coaches Convention to push the our new protein, the P26, that's coming out, and so got to catch up. Man, I bumped into guys that I helped get their first job. That's how old I am. Golly! I met their kids, their son. It's like looking at Garrett, my oldest. It was great. It's pretty
Hud,
cool.
I guess you got the brain of a defensive coordinator, but you had the intensity of a strength coach. Did you ever? How much were you in the weight room with your guys? Did you stay out of it? Let Mike Golden handle that, or were you in there as well?
I would go in there and watch. I wasn't into going in there and lifting with them anymore. I did it in my early 30s and during my 20s, but I turned 40 when I was there, so I sort of made a left-hand turn on that, and aches and pains were increasing. I was trying to win a ball game, and we had a good one in Mike Golden, and of course now the strength coach there at ECU was hired. I think was our last 2 or 3 years there, and Mike put him in charge of the defense as one of his main focuses, and he did a great job. And saw him at the convention and a bunch of guys, just a
Yeah, good.
lot of guys. I'll tell you what, I've been to the coaches convention, and this was the first time I've been to the strength coaches convention. Different body types,
No doubt, no doubt.
no fat guys.
How's that changed over the years? You talk about your protein, and you can go more detail into that as much as you'd like, Coach Hud. But how has strength and conditioning changed from 2025 to hell back when you were at Notre Dame playing?
I would say when I was in high school, Moeller was way ahead of its time with strength and conditioning and off-season programs. It was one of the reasons we would just suffocate people in the second half, particularly in the fourth quarter. We were just stronger, and we didn't have every single position didn't have a better player, but we were stronger. And then, it picked up in the 70s with Boyd Epley at Nebraska. They were the sort of the OGs, and then it took off in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And then, it became a focal point of, it was really more strength. The conditioning was still, you got in condition in camp, because we would practice 2,000 times in the month of August, and then really in the 90s it really cranked up, and to where the strength coach and science had kicked in, all these new companies, that was a big thing. And then, the more the guys were in the weight room, the more that position of the strength coach and the trainer, they became the guy that the players talked to the most, really. Because we were so restricted at times of what we could watch guys do and couldn't do. It was so stupid. And now you can be around them all the time. So that position is very, very important. And a lot of head football strength coaches, were also the head of the overall program within the university. It was that big of a position. That's changed a little bit to where it's a separate guy now that has the sort of the department. Man, it's a big science. It's a large industry. I saw every type of strength and conditioning apparatus that you could get your hands on. There was a lot of steel in the vendors area. A lot of the big all the big dogs and with that build the weights. They were all there, and again,
Huh?
everybody looked like they could lift them a lot too.
Got to look the part, I guess.
Oh
Greg
yeah.
Hudson joining us. Hud, that is it more. It's got to be more off season, right? Like, what does a strength coach do with the guys in season, where recovery is so important, but also you guys want to get a workout in, right? So, how about in
Yeah.
season?
Yeah, you're lifting 2 to 3 times a week in season. I think that is just as critical. It used to be, well, the season started, I'll start lifting in February. Now, and really it's not. the word maintain is very dangerous in sports. If you're just trying to maintain something, you're really getting worse. So you can keep your high numbers that you hit as you got ready for the season, but also you can get in a different type of playing strength to where your functional movement is better, your flexibility is better. And some of the guys say they feel the best during the week after the hardest lift that they have. And that's, it's a commitment to it, and you got to hold the guys accountable. And I think you're seeing more accountability now. Just put it in your NIL contract. You miss the lift, you don't get no coke. You don't get paid.
Hud, you're on your world tour, and by that I mean the United States tour, and you're going to be going to different schools and football programs. And
Yeah,
can you tell us the purpose for that? What are you
yeah.
doing?
First, I the P26 with the blended box company uh, is out. We're selling the protein. It's the highest amount of protein per ounce that you can get. You only need 8 ounces for 26 grams of protein. That's near 75% more than what you'll get in consuming all those bottles from the other brands. And we can put it in mass quantities, and we dispense it in a box, just like wine in a box, and it can sit right in your refrigerator. And there's 13 servings. And heck, I'm an analytics guy. First thing I want to know is how many is total in the box. There's 338 grams of protein in one box with that liquid pre-made. And if you order a pallet, you're going to get just under 60,000 grams of protein for your team to chug a lug down. So, but then also, I've taken advantage of, being around the teams and getting some work in with the Joe Moore Award. You know, when I get a chance, a lot of guys are on the road, but they have an assistant strength coach. The head coaches are in and out. Maybe watch 20 minutes of film, 30 minutes to see what their line looks like at the end of spring, or which group. Good time to talk to the strength coach. What are the guys like? Do they fit the core values of the award? What's their commitment to the unit? What's their technique? Are they finishers? Are they tough guys? Um, and that's the thing I think is really important in college football right now, is getting back to the importance of the team and the unit. There's an I in NIL, and that's what makes it even more dangerous. So.
Yeah, good point. And I will say, Coach, I was uneducated on the Joe Moore Award until you educated me on it. And in conjunction with that, I feel like I am starting to see more of it, online on
Yeah,
ESPN being talked about during a game. I'll text you. People will bring it up during a broadcast, and
right.
so I feel like it's getting out there more, and you want it out there even more, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is, it's been 10 years, and it's Aaron Taylor created the award. I was around Joe when I was a player, and then I was his graduate assistant. I was his GA. I mean, Kirk Ferentz was his GA at Pitt
Oh wow.
back in the day. Yeah, we're probably the last of the Mohicans from the coaching standpoint that were his GAs that are still kicking it around, but we're both involved on the board and voters, and take a lot of pride in it. And from a media standpoint and appearance and clicks and however they evaluate it, now the awards it's probably the second most popular award, but behind the Heisman Trophy now. And Aaron, I was fortunate enough to coach as a GA, um, and be around him and developed a great friendship. He's been on my podcast, and the awards just getting bigger and bigger. And they're all foundations. They all started as awards. That's what you hear, it's an award. But they're all groups and foundations and charitable organizations that do a lot of good work.
Greg Hudson joining us, Coach Hud. We got some news this week. Nick Saban
Oh yeah,
expected to serve as co-chair for Donald Trump's administration's Commission on College Football. So, people have been screaming forever. Tim Brando was one of the first I remember saying we need a college football czar. We need somebody overlooking this thing. And this was
yeah.
20 years ago, more than that maybe. But I don't know. Any thoughts on this? Do we need somebody to oversee what's going on with college football right now?
Absolutely. I mean, you look at how baseball uh, had to have a commissioner when after the Black Sox scandal. They had to put that in place. And the last time you heard a president get involved in college football, maybe like this, to coach you up right here, is probably when Teddy Roosevelt, when they were going to ban football because people were dying. Uh, Back in the day, and that was the development of the NCAA, which is just a rules group. That's all it is. It's a rule book. They're a living, breathing rule book that don't do a very good job, but they're a living, breathing rule book, and if somebody with power can step in and help get things aligned and going in a better direction. I think it's great for the game and the sport, and Nick is as good as they come as far as his knowledge, his experience, his success, and he's not a we're going to do it one way. He's open to a lot of change. He developed many different things through his career, from styles of offense and defense
Yeah.
and coaching. And when I saw that the president was going to speak at Alabama, I'd already talked to a couple guys that had mentioned something was floating around out there. But when I saw the president was going to speak at Alabama, my ears perked up, and I said, "There is going to be a meeting somewhere." Now, I got to think, even though he's an Auburn guy, I got to think Tuberville may have pushed that a little bit too. I don't know that for a fact, but that was one of my first thoughts too, is where Tuberville's been in all this.
Yeah. Good point about Saban too. I remember, they had all those stud running backs and offensive line, and then uh, Saban kind of realized he needed more firepower, and then, as you say, got Julio and all kinds of
Yeah,
freakazoids at receiver,
yeah. Became wide
and
receiver U for a minute.
hell yeah, and flipped it, and got a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL as well.
Yeah, well, he brought Sark. Of course, Sark and Lane Kiffin. They needed to
Yeah,
go to the Nick
it was
Saban.
Coach Rehab.
It was a
Coach
coach
Rehab.
recovery program. It was 28 months, not 28 days. So, but it's been very successful, and they have a high success rate. You know, Unlike the other program, which is about 10% successful. But it's Nick. He knows what he's doing. I think it's perfect timing for it with what's going on with the judge's ruling that's been sort of put on ice a little bit, because thank God the judge pulled the pin, or said, "Whoa, not so fast. We're not going to just kick some of these players to the curb because you got to change your roster up. It's not right." I'll say Dabo Sweeney did a great job of speaking very loud about that. The walk-on program, it's devastating to some kids. Because if you still want to play football, and you love the school you're at, and you got to pick, I think it's bull crap.
Yeah, so the ramifications for that, Coach Hud, are what? The guys that would be walk-ons either just being regular civilian students, or having to
Done.
go to D2, or
Yeah.
another.
I mean, I know particular have some people my age that have their kids at Notre Dame, and the situation. Here's a guy that raised on Notre Dame, had a dream of going to school there, and was able to walk on there, and a preferred walk on, and to have to not be able to continue. I think it should be grandfathered and weaned in. That these
Right.
guys are able to graduate and stay, and they're like, well, you can't. There was something about the expense of it, and that's complete horse crap. That's just Sheetz gas station right there all the way. And if somebody brings anything up about the money, they are a liar. They can figure it out.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to use the 105. Not everybody's going to have 105 guys on scholarship. It's 105 roster, but they can be on scholarship. So I believe the SEC. I know the SEC is not going to all. They're all going to have the same amount. I wouldn't. I think it's 85.
Greg Hudson joining us. I love that Hud censors himself when we're able to edit out his cussing, but when we're on live, he just lets it fly. You got that backwards, Coach Hud.
I know. I mean, I just drop it. I go maybe get a little more heated. Maybe it's, because it's I'm in studio. It's Thursday. It's getting
The
close
lights
to
are
three.
on.
Yeah, I mean, it's the surrounding gets to me. It's a little intimidating,
Greg
especially with
Hudson.
you, the big superstar.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hud, what's your? We'll talk to you again next week. Where are
Yeah.
you going between now and then?
Boy, I may be. Let's see. I'm gonna fly to Dallas, then I'm gonna go to Norman, Oklahoma to see Boomer Sooner. Then I'll be down to TCU, then SMU, then Baylor, then A&M, then Texas, and Austin, then over to Houston, and then I'll take a few hour drive all the way over to Baton Rouge. So
Oh,
you may be talking to me from Baton Rouge, and then I'll bring it on back and stay in College Station Thursday night and be on a plane back Friday. And then that following Monday, I will be Illinois, Iowa, Iowa State, and over to Nebraska, down to Kansas State, then over head east to Missouri, then back up to IU, then back into where I'm at here in Indiana. Then we'll have Memorial Day weekend and got to watch the 500. And then it's another tour. I'm just
man.
going to keep on going. You got to
Can you
pick up
make?
the phone
We'll
and you
make
got to
you a.
call and you
Uh,
got to go see people. This Zoom, FaceTime to get something done. That's hogwash.
okay.
You got to look somebody in the eye and you got to find out who makes a decision. And it's no. I'm just doing May recruiting again, man. I'm just going to get 5 stars. That's it. The Greater Metropolitan United States is my recruiting area.
We need to get Glenn to make a kick-ass shirt, and it's got like the world tour on the back, all your stops, like a band
Oh
does.
yeah,
That'd be cool. We need that.
yeah.
Um, what was I going to say? Oh, you could, if you wanted to, Hud, probably hit the North Carolina schools in about a day and a half. It would take what 2 weeks to hit all the Texas schools if you're driving.
Yeah,
It's like
well,
a
you need a
country,
helicopter.
right?
You need a helicopter. Like I thought about Texas Tech, and I was like, man, I got to get on a puddle jumper and fly to Dallas, and then I got to fly back. And
Yeah,
that's the only one that I'm not hitting. That's a top 50 program. So, but I'm gonna on my way back to Carolina. I've got one route. I'm sort of trying to juggle it to where it may be head to Columbus, then over to Pittsburgh, then down to West Virginia, then up to State College, then down to Maryland, and roll into the UVA, and then hit the schools in the Carolinas. Then take a break in Emerald Isle.
nice stop. Nice stop there. Yeah, good plan. Man, that's cool,
Yeah,
Hud. Oh, good luck, man. And
and then I still got to get down to the SEC and the ACC and the South.
jeez Louise.
It's all. I'm going to be relentless. I'm not going to stop.
There you go. I like it. Hud, thank you for joining us, man. We'll
Yeah,
we'll
man.
catch up with you again next week.
Okay, buddy. I'll talk to you later.